I can't sleep when I lay in bed. Too much thinking in my head. I don't know what to do anymore. But come on now, tell me the score. Is there anything I can do to get out of these tragic blues? I'm a victim of circumstance. I never really had a chance. I lay down and stare at my feet. You know the world has got me beat.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we'll be featuring a guest panel of youth who will be discussing the role that social media plays as they cope with mental health challenges. The panel will be moderated by Stephanie Ramos, and our panelists are Peng Cha Vang, Carlos Garcia, Amanda Lip, Keiko Abaje, Jordana Steinberg, and Independence Taylor. We now take you to the panel, which is already in progress.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you all for joining us. As Susan mentioned, we are having our first youth panel this evening. As some of you may know, throughout the nation, we've recently been having community dialogues around mental health, and here in Sacramento, we've had the opportunity to do that. And through our process, we've been able to engage many young people from different places throughout Sacramento. And we've been able to get a few of them here this afternoon so that we can kind of talk about what mental health means to them, how they're utilizing social media as far as talking about mental health and how they may be coping. And hopefully we can get a little more in depth into how youth are thinking and talking about mental health issues in Sacramento. And so we're going to have our panel kind of go around and introduce themselves. My name's Stephanie Ramos, and I'm going to be moderating the panel this afternoon, and we're going to have our youth introduce themselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Keiko Abaje.
What's up everyone, my name is Carlos Garcia.
Hi, I'm Peng Cha Vang.
I'm Independence Taylor.
Hi, I'm Jordana Steinberg.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lip.
Thank you all. So to kind of start off our discussion, we're going to just kind of have a broad discussion around what mental health means to you all. We know that depending on culture, age group, mental health may mean something different. And so just to kind of get us all on the same page as we start our discussion, if any of you want to share what mental health means to you, you personally, your community, things along that line.
Well, what mental health means to me is it's a combination of what are your thoughts, your mood, and your behavior, and what is your stress level.
I believe that mental health is kind of a status on everyone's, I want to say, their mood and just the way that they're feeling during the day, like emotionally, mentally, and physically, because mental health can really affect you, both mentally and physically.
Mental health to me is more of like it ties in like positives and negatives and like more of like how events like make you feel throughout the day, or how anything can make you feel throughout the day, and like kind of like ties in like mental illness where that like natural balance kind of gets thrown out.
Yeah, I think it's a part of you because everyone deals with it, and hopefully it doesn't make who you are, you know?
I think to me, mental health has been seen throughout my life as something that's negative, and as you know, here's your diagnosis, here's your issue, but I now see it as a combination of struggle, but also, you know, positivity. Like, I don't know, I think that mental health can mean something good. Like if you're having a good moment in life or a good day, to me that means your mental health is great, you're stable, you're happy. But then there are also times where mental health can mean you're down, you're a little depressed, and you're going through some struggles. So I think it's just it's kind of like the cycle of your moods and where you are in life. And I think, I don't know, never mind. Sorry.
To echo that, you know, I think mental health is very much like the lens through which you come to acknowledge your identity in relation to your experiences and your emotions and your behaviors, right, which can change on a daily basis. And as you adjust the lens of how you identify with your mental health, you come to understand that there is a lot of struggle and a lot of success with that combination of experiences.
And I think mental health, just to add on to that, I think it's just bottom line is, how are you doing?
And I think to me the stigma of, the label mental health, I feel like there's always been some, if I'm struggling with my mental health, I'm somehow deemed as wrong or bad. And I think that, I don't know, I've seen in the mental health field, we're going to realize that it doesn't mean that you're bad or something's wrong with you. And I think there's a lot more acceptance around it than there had been before, especially when I was younger. So I think that's really good. And people are learning to see mental health as a process rather than as something that's bad or good.
So individually, it seems like you all have a very solid grounding in what mental health is for you. How confident or comfortable are you talking with your peers, friends, family members about mental health?
I'm very comfortable talking with my friends and family about mental health, and anybody in my community, really. It's more of like a more open thing, where in the communities I come from, which tend to be like more low income and everything, everyone pretty much is usually very open about when they're having mental health issues and stuff. Like, they won't maybe not talk about it directly in person, but they'll, like, and myself included, like, post on Facebook and stuff about it.
I think it really kind of just, for me, depends on how close you are to certain people. I mean, a lot of people that, like you said on Facebook when you post statuses, whenever I post statuses, it's mostly because those people that are there on the Facebook page I've known relatively for a while, and I can't go out there and just start giving my whole entire daily problem with just some random stranger that I just met. It has to be some sort of little tiny bond at least to have my comfortability level to be up there enough for me to talk about my mental health.
Yeah, it really varies between person.
I think for me, I've throughout my struggles and throughout overcoming a lot of things, I've made the conscious decision to not be afraid to talk to my peers or family or friends. I'm a strong believer that, if I want the stigma to decrease, I need to do my part in making sure that happens. And so sometimes I do fear what people will think or what people will say, but I've always made the decision to go out and say what I'm feeling. I mean, obviously in context, I'm not going to say something in a place where it's not appropriate, but I do feel like being open about it and being confident about what I'm struggling with or what I've achieved is important, because that it normalizes it. And for me, that's been great. And my friends and family have grown to, just accept it as a part of life and see it as a part of me rather than me as a whole. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm relatively comfortable talking about it because something we all have to deal with. It's not like you're weird because you're the only one struggling with it, Mm-hmm. Everyone, no matter what, deals with it in one way or another. Mm-hmm. So you have to just ask for help,
But when we all start to talk about it like we are now, I mean, to me, throughout this process of me coming and telling my story and everything, I've realized that I'm not alone. And I think that's the point that we all want to make, or at least that I do, is that there are tons of people out there who are struggling, but I mean, if we all individually take the time to speak out about what we're going through, about our struggles and our accomplishments, I feel like more people won't be as scared to speak out, and that's how the stigma decreases.
Yeah, I really like that. We're not alone.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too, the irony of, the question of, talking to our peers. Do we talk to our peers about mental health? Because to Ping Chao's point, the simple yet complex question of how are you doing today, or like a post on Facebook, what's on your mind?
Yeah.
That is engaging in our mental well-being, right? And asking ourselves, and engaging with others about what's not only on our mind, but posing that question to others as a public sort of, display of our emotions and our behaviors. So it seems that every day, we talk about our mental health, but when we say, do we talk about mental health, we start to think about maybe, our struggles and what we've been through and overcoming things. But perhaps it's as simple as, like Ping Chao said, how are we feeling, what are we doing? And that right there is talking about our mental health.
Yeah, like just talking about something about like what's frustrating you that day would be talking about your mental health.
Right.
Be like, like exactly like usually when people talk about mental health, they're usually like going off like, oh, maybe they're talking about mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Actually, for me, I wouldn't be comfortable talking about mental health just because there's such a high stigma and also a lack of awareness about what mental health is. And sometimes mental health is just not culturally appropriate to talk about, but also it's not a usual way that you do with healing. So I am cautious about talking about mental health, and sometimes it's really hard to talk about it because there's no word in your languages to translate what mental health is. So I am uncomfortable talking about it, even knowing that it could do such a great impact by talking about it. So I would pick what situation that I am comfortable talking about it, and if a person needed help, I would reach out to that person and just talk to that person about what mental health is and what kind of help they can get. But personally, it's very scary thing to talk about mental health.
So you must be very brave to be here with us right now and putting yourself kind of, in the public face.
Yes.
And talking about it. So
Yes.
thank you.
But definitely there is challenges in talking about mental health.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really important note that you say about just how different cultures translate different meanings and how we interpret the same thing,
Yeah.
the same phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Mental health, what does that mean across different cultures or ideologies or, socioeconomic statuses, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so powerful, just the simple question of how are you feeling or what are you doing, because you're sort of inadvertently asking, what is your mental state of mind? Where are you at in terms of your state? But in a way that's more universal in terms of we're all feeling something, right? We all have mental health, but it's how we identify with those struggles and those successes, right? So the cultural, translation and adaptation of these terms is so critically important. It's a great point.
Well, I think there's a lot of fear in expressing yourself or what you're feeling, because I know for myself, someone could ask me, someone even close to me could say, how are you doing today? And knowing that I'm not doing so well that day, but I don't know whether to say I'm okay or I'm struggling, because if I say I'm struggling, they're going to say with what? And if I tell them, I know from knowing them that they're not going to completely understand what I'm going through, because it's not something that they've been through. And so I tend to feel this back and forth struggle with, do I tell them and maybe they can comfort me, or do I deal with this alone in silence and figure it out myself? And so I think, I don't know, I've realized that not as many people are educated on, what mental health really means. Like, it could mean a diagnosis, it could mean just how you're doing in the day. I don't know, I think there's so many different interpretations of it, and all of them are true and valid, and I think people often get them mixed up with the stigma and the stereotypes that they hear. And so for me, I know that it's always been a struggle to say how I'm really feeling, because I don't know if anyone will really get it or be able to understand me.
Yeah, I completely understand, because I remember back when I was younger, I was more shy and timid, and like the most simple things like, hey, how are you doing, would really lighten up my day, And it would just really help me out a lot.
Shows that people care,
Yeah.
Those little things, those little gestures that we take a few moments out of our day to do, whether it's saying hi or acknowledging someone's presence. I think you're right. Those little things really go a long way.
So we talked a little bit about, quite a lot, about how you guys talk to your peers, friends, family about mental health. So social media is becoming much more popular, not only, in older age groups, but obviously younger age groups. It's something that I think is used pretty much on a daily basis with most people. How comfortable are you using social media to maybe vent, to talk about, what you might be dealing with as far as mental health? Do you guys use it? How comfortable are you with that? And what might that look like?
Yeah, I'm pretty open on Facebook and everything. I do tend to vent out a little bit more than I probably should, but at the same time, a lot of the people that have viewed it, they probably are just scanning through their news feed, probably doesn't mind a few words here and there, so they'll just keep moving down. But then there's just those people that will kind of see your little struggle on the status and kind of message you and be like, how are you doing? I read your status and I was just wondering if you're doing okay. Are you feeling all right? Are you gonna be okay if we talk about this, or are you gonna need a few moments alone? And it starts to really build up my comfortability zone with just using social media for that kind of purpose, mostly because it started out with Facebook. Now you see pictures and you see statuses and tweets and little notifications here and there about mental health, and there's a lot of pages and everything that are building up that that kind of outreach for people to actually be able to go on there and actually search certain websites for that certain amount of things that you may be going through bullying, or you might just be having a bad day. You might feel like you're not really in there, like people are always just kind of forgetting about you, and then you can actually speak to people about it. So I really just think that it really does help you if you have a chance to kind of talk about it rather than leaving it blank, because it like the status is just like, oh, how are you feeling and everything like that. It's just like, well, I'm feeling pretty good, so I'll post a status about that. But it's the people that might take a moment to put, I'm not doing too well, and it'll take someone on the other end's response to actually be able to maybe help you if you can't get the help physically with your family or friends at the moment. So
I'm actually pretty comfortable posting on Facebook and venting on Facebook about my mental health issues. Actually, that's funny. I just had a dissociation episode for my PTSD just like a couple weeks ago, and I ended up posting on Facebook during it. So that was very interesting, going back and reading those statuses when I was like having an episode and stuff, and it was really interesting. And then I ended up reading like people, those few, like Kate was talking about, those few people who actually like will go and comment on the status after seeing that you're struggling and everything. And I actually ended up finding out that a couple people I know who in like my network and community certain networks and everything that also have PTSD. So they were able to like help me like talk about what worked for them, what I should probably try doing to help it like lessen the symptoms and everything. It actually made it my day pretty well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really like the community aspect part about it, because honestly, I'm not very comfortable like posting my emotions on social media, but like I would like show my feelings indirectly in social media. Like if I had a bad day, I would just go out and skate, videotape it, and just like put it up on Instagram. And like I was talking about community, I think it's really cool how like I put a hashtag on skateboarding or just a skate team, then like people will like hit me up, say, hey, that trick was a cool trick, and be like, hey, you're a really cool skater, or just like help me improve, you know, because usually never anyone ever like tries to get me down, you know. Usually just something that builds me up, you know.
Yeah, there's a lack of kindness here and there.
Yeah.
I think for me, I have a hard time posting my emotions and feelings on social media, because I often feel like through texting and Facebook or Instagram, things can get so easily misinterpreted, and I like to feel like I'm understood for the most part, and I don't like to put myself in situations where I end up feeling misunderstood or not listened to, you know, when I'm really trying to reach out for help. And so my experiences in posting stuff on social media have never been that positive. And so, I mean, I hear what you guys are all saying, and I'm inspired by it. Like, I really hope that I can get to the point where I'm able to do that and do that comfortably. But I think at this point, there's still so much stigma, and I actively try to decrease the stigma in my life and for the people around me. But I think that's an area that I still struggle with, because, you know, when you're talking to someone, you have the facial expressions and the hand gestures and the tone of voice. But over Facebook or any social media, you kind of just have words, and you fill in the blanks with what you want to hear or what you think you should hear. And I think that concept kind of scares me, because I know for myself, if there's someone posting someone, I without even thinking, fill in the blanks. And there's judgment and stereotypes that go along with it, and I'm a little, I guess, uncertain of whether I want to put myself in that situation.
yeah, like reading a status and just a few exclamation points could just make you read it like, hey, I'm so angry, or just things like that. And, you know, like, it's when you're in the person that's actually making the status is just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm having such a hard time in this moment. And then people are just so throwing it out there, just like yelling and being like, wow, this person must be really angry about something, when the actual reality is you're just kind of frustrated, and you just want, you know, somebody to kind of be like, oh, like, is there anything that I can do to help you? And I think that's just like one of the biggest things that is really hard, even for any website, like on YouTube comments or something. People make a video, or on Instagram, like when you make a video and then somebody comments something, sometimes they seem negative, but then sometimes they're just very misinterpreted, you know, kind of acts of giving advice. Like, somebody could be like, oh, that was all right, but you could do this and this, and then people will just be like, well, why are you being so mean on to like how good he was doing, like you should just leave it alone. It's like I was just trying to give advice, and I think those kind of misunderstandings could make conflict in the community, and actually that's one of the biggest reasons why it is somewhat hard to put it out there on social media about certain things, and that's why sometimes you're just hoping that the person on the other end can understand it a little bit better. So
Yeah, I agree. I think that for me, if I were to post something on social media when I was feeling depressed, I don't know if I'd want to hear the responses of other people. I think that's where my fear lies, because when I'm in that place, I'm feeling vulnerable and insecure and just really kind of not myself, and I don't feel like I have the strength to hear someone say, well, just go running, it'll help, or, you know, I'm sorry you're going through that, but I went skiing today, look how great my life is. Like, I don't really want to hear that, so I kind of just want to either be comforted or left alone.
Yes.
And so I think that, you know, people always say reach out when you're struggling, and I would love to be able to do that, but I think I'm better at doing that with like face to face, you know, with people in front of me, but over social media, there's so much ambiguity and stigma associated with it, and I know one of the only ways to decrease that stigma is to keep putting yourself out there and doing that, but I think that there's so much out there on the internet that, you know, so many people who aren't nice, so many people who are great, but I think it's taking that risk and weighing whether or not you want to do it, and I'm not sure I want to do it.
No, there definitely is that risk with posting on social media. Like you were saying, I've definitely had a few negative run-ins when posting on Facebook, but it's just, I don't know, those negative run-ins when posting on social media about like mental health, like whether positive or negative or anything, it really like kind of just like speaks to the person you've been friends with for a while, like what kind of like person they like really are, in my opinion.
That makes sense. How in the moment do you like handle that? I mean, when you're going through an episode or a depression, how do you not let that get to you in the moment? Because I know for me, I would internalize that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It took me a long time to figure out how to deal with that. It took me, I was pretty much like, pretty much for me, it was like, oh, you have PTSD, we're just gonna leave it to you to it at like 12. They're like, yeah, we're not gonna help you handle it. But so it took me up to like recently to figure out how to do it. More of like, it's just I don't know, I started like just thinking like, oh, everyone's a puppy, not a wolf, as my mom likes to say. More of like, everyone probably means well, they just want to play or be nice or whatever, but they might accidentally end up hurting you. Just human nature in general.
Okay.
So like, I don't know, it made it easier for me to start thinking it from that way, that they don't really mean to hurt you, but if it happens repeatedly, I guess that's when you can finally tell if they're a wolf or not.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'll use that.
It's really sweet.
Yeah, social media to me, I have mixed feelings about it, I suppose, because it's very much like an illusion and then also a platform for truth as well. Because what I mean by the illusion is that, in a sense, I wonder, you know, how real and how much truth is behind these statuses and these posts, because we put out what we want people to see. So we may skew what we really think or what we really do because of all the ways we can edit things and we can change things and we can delete things and modify it. It's like, well, how real, really is it? But then there's the truth, like what we're all speaking to, and maybe getting that notification, getting that like, or someone messaging you and following up with your emotions has a sense of truth to it and has a real quality of engagement and outreach that can be so beneficial in reducing stigma and discrimination. For me personally, I find social media very overwhelming. When I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling anxious, when my mental health is getting the best of me, so to speak, I choose to sort of recluse myself. As a natural introvert, I will choose to engage in art or a private activity or just pure quiet and no stimulus in terms of technologically, because there's so much stimulus with society anyways, with technology, and to me it's a little overwhelming, honestly, and I think I can go in a vicious cycle of questioning the truth with the illusion of social media platforms, and what may be really beneficial I may perceive as not beneficial. So I choose to sort of just take a step back from that type of stimulation when I'm going through something, but I can see the community that it does form when you do choose to reach out and use those platforms.
So we heard a lot about, I heard Facebook a few times, Instagram. There are often new social media sites that come out. How do you find out about them?
Have you downloaded this app yet? Have you seen this? It really just kind of finds its way to one person, and after a while it starts to kind of spread out, and then from person to person they start realizing, you know, this is the newest thing that has come to their attention. And you know, it took me a while to understand what Instagram was, basic pictures and everything, but then once you start getting into depth of it, you're just realizing this is an actual site that people will use on the daily. And so it really just kind of becomes something that someone starts as the app creator or the website designer, and it starts branching out with just that person sharing it with their friends. And from there, it starts becoming somewhat like a virus, because it's not going to leave, but it stays. And then if people can spread it even more, then it goes out. But if not, then it just is. It has its own little effects. Like there's people that use Pinterest and things like that, and I've never gone on there and used it, but they have. So that's where it stays. But sometimes if a website or an app gets so big, it just starts growing like uncontrollably everywhere. So
Contagious.
it's contagious.
No, it really is like that though. It's usually like one person finds it, or if they got referred by another person, and from there it just kind of like explodes out, like outwards. Like so many people start using it, so many people start downloading it, people start like going to look at the website or webpage or app or whatever. And it's like in social media in general, it's just like really interesting the way that stuff spreads around between everyone.
I know for me, I'll be, you know, walking to class, college or something, and one of my friends will stop me and say, "Oh my gosh, did you get this app? Oh my, you don't know what that is? You have to download it." They'll take my phone and download it. And before I know, I'm like, you know, messaging tons of people or playing, you know, Angry Birds or whatever the game is. And I think, and then someone else will see me doing that and be like, "Oh, you know, what is that? Let me try that out." And so I think for me, I know that social media in that way has become a way for me to get to know people and for me to form my own community. When I first got to college, I didn't really know anybody. I was in a new city. I felt like really alone, and that was one of the ways that I began to meet people and create a group of friends for myself. We all had similar interests in regarding social media, and so even that, I mean, everyone has social media pretty much, and so we found common ground on that, and we ended up, you know, just bonding over that, and over time a friendship built. And I think for me that was one of the ways that got me through a lot of struggles, was being able to relate on that just basic common ground. So I'm just really talking about apps and Facebook or whatever. So
Yeah, that's pretty much how I found Instagram. Someone took my phone and like forced me to download it. I didn't really like it at first, but then I was actively using it for like 2 weeks, and I just stopped, and like 3 months later I was actively on it. I just like liked it a lot, you know. I was actually exploring it.
it's addicting.
Yeah.
Also, some of us drive, so I would hear some stuff on the radio. And then I say, oh, that's a website. So I would go on the website and check it out. What is that? And it's really cool.
Oh, I definitely did find out about a website from radio one time. It was really interesting though. It was the Take a Step in Their Shoes mental health initiative in Sac County or whatever, California. And I don't know, it was really interesting. I heard it on the radio one day, and I rarely listen to actual radio, so it was fairly interesting. It piqued my interest enough to go look it up.
So that was actually a great segue. Are there any particular sites, websites, or social media sites that you all have found to be valuable in any way, as far as maybe mental health or real life problems in general, finding solutions to issues? Any sites in general? I know you had mentioned the Walk in Our Shoes campaign.
Yeah.
Is there anything about that in particular that you found helpful or cool?
Yeah, you could read like some stories they had put up and everything, but the thing that was interesting the most is that they like have the where like you can design the shoes, the little drawing and shoes, and you can put like 3 words that you feel describe yourself, whether positive or negative, you can put with them, and then they keep them in this huge gallery where everyone else has posted a bunch of them. You can go see all the ones other people have posted as well, and I thought that was really interesting.
That's awesome.
Also, like if you're experiencing like a mental health, like if you're going through something, when you read the stories, it really makes you feel like you're not alone. Like there's other people too that are experiencing bipolar or experiencing depression, and so reading those, it just really inspires you that you're not alone and that you can get over this and you can get through this. Yeah.
I know for me, I recently found the website directingchange.org, and I'd heard about it, but I never really looked it up. And I was watching the videos, and I just felt so like inspired, because these people had created videos about a depression or bipolar disorder or PTSD, and I mean, I struggle with depression, and so listening to those videos and watching those that people had created, not just about depression, but about specific emotions that are so hard to describe, and so many, feelings that I don't really know how to put into words. I saw them on those videos, and I really felt like, okay, so this is okay that I'm feeling this way. It's okay that I can, and I can reach out for help, like someone else gets it. Even if I don't know how to put it into words, there's someone else seems to get it, so I can do this. And I already knew that I could get through it, but it encouraged me to, not beat myself up over what I was feeling or dealing with. And I think that for me was a turning point. And I mean, this is recent, and I realized that, the struggle never completely ends, but I'm learning ways, like this is a social media website that really, really got me hooked. And I feel like when I'm having bad days, I'll go back to that. It's something that I can look at and hold on to. So it's something that helped me.
Yeah, I hear you. In addition to directingchange.org, I was checking out a site called artwithimpact.org, and it's one of my favorite sites because it's an international film contest where you can view submissions that people made on behalf of mental health, and you see perspectives from a lot of different cultures around the world that are, showing what mental health means to them in a very metaphorical, artful way that is not only inspiring but educational and relatable too in a lot of ways, while also allowing you to understand that, wow, there's a lot of other perspectives out there that maybe you didn't even realize. And then there's another website as well. It's the Youth Lens Project, and they are all about what's called photo voice, which is the use of photography to express yourself. And so when you take a photo, acknowledging the emotions behind that photo and what it means, and looking past what you may see but how you feel with that photo. And at least as an artist and someone who does film work and photography, that resonates with me when I can look at something, as Jordana mentioned, and it inspires you and also maybe motivates you to use that medium to tell your story and to further however you cope with mental health issues or share and advocate for reduced stigma and discrimination. So
Yeah, and going off that, the creativity part of it, I was amazed watching these videos how people were able to put into words and into art how they were feeling. I watched this one video of this young woman. She was describing her depression like she was a butterfly, and I mean, it was like a 10-minute video, but I never thought of it in the way that she described it, and it really gave me a different perspective and outlook on depression, what I was going through and what she seemed to be going through. And I felt like she put a positive spin on it, a kind of hopeful outlook. And I really felt like, there's not just one way to look at it, because so often I get stuck in that one-way path of thinking this is how it is, this is the only way to look at it, this is what it is for me. And I often forget to look and realize there are other ways of looking at this. There are other perspectives. And so seeing that video and many others really really touched me, and it really inspired me to take a look at myself and take a look at how I view my issues and the stigma associated with it. And I definitely feel like really glad that I went on that site, because it helped my day that day too. So it can help the little things.
So most of you, as we've talked, have mentioned how private this can be sometimes, and how personal, and sometimes the risk you take when you share this with other people. So if you yourself had a friend or someone that was close to you that you felt or saw was struggling, how might you go about sharing some of this information, website resources, social media? How would you go about sharing that with the person that you think might be struggling a little?
I think everybody in their own little way has a way of making it that it's known that they're struggling. And some people, they don't post, they just kind of, they're like ghosts, and they just skim through the news feeds, and if they find something that they kind of see as helpful, they can look at it. But sometimes when the people that actually speak out, and when they actually say like, oh, I'm not having a good day, and I'm just like really in the gutters right now, then it's not everyone's responsibility to kind of go about and just start talking to that friend and giving them links and phone numbers and things like that when they've been through it. But there are some people that actually take the the responsibility and think like, this isn't something that I have to do, but knowing this person for this long, or knowing this person and how they are, I can actually connect with them, and I can tell them from my own experience that it's something that they can use into their own their own little situation, and they can actually just make it so that when they give their friend the link, that they're not just gonna sit there and be like, all right, hope you take this link and find out everything that I found out. And when you tell somebody about it, you want to just tell them like, if you want, we can just like Skype, or we can do other things to kind of connect, and I can show you step by step of what these links can do for you and who you can call, as in the support hotline or something of social media sites that are actually meant to help depression, or meant to help PTSD or bipolar or anything. It just like, it really kind of depends on how I can make a difference in the social media that I found useful, is what it really comes down to.
Yeah, I'm pretty, me myself, I'm guilty of reading like clinical papers about PTSD and everything. So I know like the main symptoms and like the way certain people react to different things. So yeah, I come from it from like more of like a experienced like /clinical point of view when I come to it, when I'm talking to people about like mental health issues and everything. So it's like, it's the way I come at it's really interesting. Like I just came up, like there was somebody I noticed from my recently in my community, and I was noticing that they were showing like similar signs that I do to certain like topics and everything. So I went up to talk to them one day, and I was like straight up I was just like, oh, do you have PTSD? I just went up to them and I was like, oh, do you have PTSD? And they're like, oh yeah, actually I do. And I'm like, oh, I was just explaining to them like, oh yeah, I had noticed that you reacted to certain things similar to I do. And so then we ended up on this like whole long conversation on like how I ended up, like what I did to like help cope with like certain things, and like what they've been doing, and why they like, and like just like kind of giving each other feedback on how we're both dealing with it and everything. It's a really interesting experience. Because I mean, usually you don't just go up to someone like, hey, do you have PTSD?
Right. Yeah, I think if I were to make a recommendation to a friend or a family member about a website to use, or if they needed support, the first thing I would probably think of was the culture that they're coming from, and what will resonate with them and their background and their interests. I know for me at least, if I was going through something difficult, I know with experience that I reacted very defensively to that. Like, no, mental health, I don't want to go to that side. It has to do with, possibly a diagnosis or a struggle that you went through that you're maybe not willing to face yet. But if they can interface with you through a website that has to do with your interests and kind of hook you in that way, like the Directing Change movies or the Art with Impact movies, that to me was a medium by which the mental health message got to me, because it was through film and through that art of my choice, right? And so that's what captured me and hooked me in, was through that medium, and not necessarily approaching it so directly. And also, of course, reading research papers and educating yourself is absolutely imperative as well, and realizing that, there's different philosophies and perspectives that, go into mental health, and it changes across time. It's very much a fluid process, I think, and one that we have to acknowledge changes over time and experiences with ourselves and with others. So,
going off what Amanda said, I know that for me, I was hesitant to look at sites that said mental health too, or like, look at your diagnosis and here's what you are feeling and let me tell you how to fix it, but you probably can't fix it because there's no cure. That kind of just bothered me. I felt like there was no solution to what I was supposed to do to handle it or to fix it, and I wanted a quick solution of how to help myself. And a while back, one of my friends gave me a book because she knew I loved to read. She gave me a book of this woman's memoir who struggled with bipolar disorder and PTSD. And I mean, I hadn't gone through everything that she had gone through, but I could relate to it. And she had read it and thought of me. She gave it to me, and I read it, and then there were links to certain websites on the back that, she looked at, the author looked at, and I looked at them, and I was inspired by that because I felt, wow, she could overcome that, and I'm in the midst of my struggle, so maybe I can too. And so I have friends who love to read or who love to paint, and if I find an artist who struggled with some sort of mental health issue or some sort of struggle, I'll show them a piece of art that they might like, and that will lead into the conversation to talk about it. But also, it's not just like, hey, here's a piece of art, look, you might be struggling. Here's a diagnosis. I try to normalize it, because when you put a diagnosis, or you make in someone's face, or you make someone face their challenge when they're not ready, they're not gonna want to. I mean, I know I wouldn't have. So I try to say, like, hey, this is what I've gone through. I don't know if it's what you're dealing with right now, but I thought that you might like to see this. It helped me, and I talk about it like it's something that's pretty normal and average, and which it is, but people often forget that it is. And so when I help friends, I make sure to talk to them how I would have wanted to be talked to, and adjust it accordingly. So
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Thanks. It's really hard because sometimes like you don't want to insult the person. Sometimes that they're like kind of like they don't want to share about it. So I remember this one time my friend, she was going through some stuff, and like I kind of knew what was going on because friends gossip. But like she really didn't want to talk about it. So like I knew I had to help her. So I just walked with her to Starbucks, then to Togo's, and we just had like a normal conversation. We had some fun, and then like afterwards she was like, "Thank you, that really helped me." Then like she opened up more, like she was more comfortable like taking my help. Then instead of just, hey, are you going through some stuff? Are you crazy? And just stuff like that,
And I think, it's really hard for some people to kind of be in acceptance. I think that everybody like goes through denial, whether it's physical or through social media. You send somebody a mental health kind of website, and from my own experience, I went and I looked at it and I was just like, mental health, I'm not going through anything right now. But then deep down, like, it was kind of eating away at me that I really did kind of need some assistance. And it took me such a long time to really find my way to making it so that I realized that I was having a struggle. And it was one of my friends that had sent me that website that was just saying, hey, like, I've seen you around school and I see how you're like just kind of a little bit gloomy around your friends, when right before anything happened, you were really just kind of that go-to guy, like you'd be smiling and everything. And it really kind of caught my attention afterwards, because after I looked at it and I kind of just blew it off, I went around and just kind of was being myself, and I didn't look at it taking any second thought about it. But then when I had a situation happen, after that situation kind of blew over, I kind of was looking through my messages and I saw the link there, and I just realized, hey, this could have helped me like a few weeks ago. And once I realized that it happens to like fairly a few people actually really experience mental health struggles, or they just kind of have a very bad past and they kind of just want to keep it to themselves, but it kind of helps you to really kind of vent out. And I think that if people blow it off, it'll just end up getting worse and worse because they're still in denial. But once they see for themselves, like if you walk them step by step, they could just start seeing like, hey, I'm actually kind of having some problems that I'm reading in this article that like we're looking through. And they can actually just kind of come up and be like, wow, I didn't know that I was having this kind of struggle, but I guess now that I know, I can kind of just talk it out with you and like tell you. And it benefited me later on, but I had wished that I had done it as soon as I got it. And so now that I'm able to talk to friends and be like, hey, I see you, I know how you're feeling. Sometimes that works, but then there's those times where it's just like, if you're ever feeling down, you already know that you can come to me, and that's how it's always going to be. And so when I share out my social media, whether it's like from pages on Facebook, it still helps because there are links inside of those. There's inspirational pictures, inspirational messages, and quotes, and there's videos, and there's all sorts of things that are out there. And so once I start sharing out, and once I start telling people like, here's something that you can look to, if it comes to that point that they can look at it and actually be like, I understand now how I'm feeling, then it just really makes a difference in everything.
Yeah. I'm actually pretty guilty of not really sharing that many mental health links through my social media. I don't do a lot of that, but usually when I do it, it's mostly like related ones, like Bible quotes and stuff that I send out, because a lot of the friends I end up sending links to are really like religious, and that would help them a lot more than like say like a government project would not really help them that well.
I think sometimes like people can be in denial or be defensive about mental health social media sites, but I think that if you reveal a little bit about yourself, that you understand where they're coming from because you've been there, and you said, hey, this social media site helped me, maybe it'll help you. I think that it would be a little bit more easier for them to not be in denial and to say it's okay for me to come out and say or tell them what I'm going through. I think it'd be able to the person to empathize, to feel that it's okay because this person understands too.
Yeah, I completely understand and agree because back when I was going through some serious stuff, one of my older friends, he was talking about it, and like I kind of really didn't want to accept this help because, you know, it's like, what do you know about it?
Yeah.
But then like he opened up, I was like, hey, you've been with what I've been through, and like look at you now, you're all healthy in college, all set up, and like, well, I took his advice because if I can see him survive through all that, I'm pretty sure he can help me through stuff too, you know?
So just from this discussion, I can see, and probably most people can see, that youth tend to like to hear things from people their own age and other young people. And I think if you're a young person that wants to help someone, I think that's like, you have a great chance at being able to help another young person. But I know as I've gotten older and being an adult working in the system, sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect from the professional world to youth culture and how youth are really living their lives. So for organizations, programs, maybe some adults who are supporting youth, what are some things that they can do or ways they can go about sharing online resources or social media with young people?
Honestly speaking, not use fancy words. Usually those types of people, I don't like talk to them. Not because it's like rude, but just because like it feels like I'm not talking to a human, you know. I'm talking to I'm talking to someone who tries to be all smart. Like no, I'm not comfortable talking about that.
Yeah, more chilled out language, definitely.
I know that when I was really struggling when I was younger, when adults would come over to me and I could tell that they were trying to be supportive and understanding and were trying to be there for me, but they had this patronizing tone, like they were looking down upon me. And I'm a pretty sensitive person, and I pick up on people's tones, and you know, I pick up on things. And as a kid, it was much worse. I didn't know that I was sensitive. I didn't know that I could kind of take in what I wanted to, and I didn't know how to control that. And so I internalized everything. And I remember at some of my worst times, adults coming over and saying, "Oh, Jordana, so I've been there too. Can I give you a hug? How about this website? It might help you out." And I remember just not hearing what they were saying and being so offended. And I was like, I'm a human being. I have feelings. They might be more severe than yours, but you're patronizing. Like, and I just felt so offended. I felt like they weren't taking me seriously, and they saw that I had a real issue, but I felt like they were overlooking it and just trying to comfort me with this like sugarcoating, you know, happiness. And I don't know. I think that now, since I'm an adult and I mentor a few kids, I try to talk to them like I would a friend. I try to talk to, I mean, even if what they're saying, I'm kind of like, oh, you should not be doing that. I kind of feel like, you know what, well, I went through phases like that. I went through things that I shouldn't have been doing or that I couldn't control. So I try to talk to them like they know what they're talking about, and I communicate to them in a way that I would a good friend of mine. I'm calm, I keep a neutral tone, and I empathize with them no matter what they're going through, because I feel like, yeah, if they're headed down the wrong path, fine, but if I tell them not to do it, it's not going to stop them. I try to empathize with where they are and then try to guide them in a better direction, because I know for myself, I still have members of my family or community that without thinking are naturally patronizing in that way, and to this day it drives me crazy. But I feel like, I don't know, if I were a kid now in a school system or a residential treatment system or some kind of system, and an adult who was in control was talking to me like that, I would just be furious. So I think tone and, you know, and just the way you communicate with kids is important, because I know as a kid I picked up on everything, and a lot of adults didn't think I did. They thought I just kind of heard what they were saying and moved on, when in reality I saw everything.
No, I totally understand that patronizing tone you're talking about. I started laughing when you mentioned it because that's actually a real thing that like mental health workers and stuff they'll start doing. I don't think they mean to do it on purpose either. Like I just think it's like your tone of voice. It always like picks up on like what you're thinking about and everything. So your tone of voice starts following what your thought process is going. So I think of more of it in like they're coming out with that patronizing tone because they're thinking of it like, oh, it's just another teenager. Oh, their hormones are probably just out of balance or something like that. And so they just like lessen what it could actually be and stuff. So that patronizing tone, you start hearing it.
Well, I think oftentimes, well, in some of my experiences, the adults who had been patronizing, they thought they were being comforting, and so I could see that clearly, and I would try, and then I'd have adults say, so when I talk to them about this, they'd say, so Jordana, how do you want me to talk to you? Because I really want to communicate with you, and that would bug me too. And I'd say, well, talk to me like I'm your friend. And I would say that to them, and they'd kind of smirk and be like, okay, I'll do that. And I feel like if an adult is going to ask a young person of any age how they want to be talked to and how they want to be communicated with, then they need to really hear that person out and take what they say and use it. Because if you ask someone something, and a kid's going to give you their honest opinion. I mean, at least the ones I know, they're not going to really sugarcoat it. They're going to be honest. And if they tell you, talk to me like a friend, well, I mean, try it. I mean, it can't hurt anybody, and it might just help them a lot, and they might respect you more and listen to what you have to say. So I think just hearing what a young person has to say is really important and taking it very seriously. So,
Yeah, I think I agree with both what you're saying about, getting on that same wavelength as the person that you're talking to, because it's going to change with everyone that you talk to. If you're talking to a little kid, it's better that you get down on one knee and get to their eye level and talk to them. If you're talking to an older adult, maybe you use, more mature verbiage instead of maybe saying hashtag something that they may not know. So it goes both ways, right? Maybe older adults may not know the language we speak, so we have to let them know. Like Jordana said, like, hey, I'd appreciate if you actually would speak to me like A, B, or C, and they'll recognize that, and hopefully you can have this mutual understanding. And as far as organizationally, organizations reaching out and sharing resources and connecting the community with the resources and the services that they offer, I think that's super valuable, right? To have a social media presence online to build that credibility, because you can see how many clicks and you can see how many likes, you can see how many views, right? There's so much metric to what we, deem as important. But at the same time, I think that with all this connectivity and all this sharing and all this clicking, we forget to look at each other in the eyes, and we forget to really do those little things that make a big difference, like those gestures, and asking people how they're doing, and taking that time to shake their hand and pausing for a moment and going, you know what, let's put our phones away for a second and let's connect literally, not virtually. So I think having both is super important. Having a physical interaction with someone as well as a virtual platform to share those resources, but having both and not forgetting to turn our phones on silent is also a great tool to have as well.
So this has been a very rich discussion. And I think we could end up probably talking for hours and hours and hours about these things. But I'm going to finish this up with just a few more questions. As many of you noticed, all of us, our participants, are wearing a green ribbon. And we have 2 of our participants who are going to tell you a little bit about the meaning behind that and how hopefully you can go out and get your own green ribbon.
Lime green is emerging as the international color that represents the mental health movement that's happening all around the world. And it really serves as a platform for discussion and advocacy. And when you see that lime green ribbon, you think, wow, all right, there's already that empathy that's building in between you two. And you know that they've been through something, or their sibling has, or their family member, or maybe they're just really fascinated with the topic of mental health and how the mind works. And I think it really serves as fostering that relationship between folks, communities, and institutions to really start talking.
For me, when I see someone wearing a green ribbon, I automatically think, hey, I can relate to them on something. Because so often when you go up and meet someone new or get introduced to someone, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye, you introduce yourself, and you try to find a common ground. It's like, cool, you like, I don't know, you don't like math, I don't like math. It's like, I don't know, it can be awkward. You have to figure out what your interests are. But when I see someone with a green ribbon, I automatically think, wow, they're somehow connected to supporting the destigmatization of mental health. I would like to go talk to them. And it's also very interesting because those people, you never know what someone's story is, and I'm the type of person who's always interested in people's backgrounds and cultures and what made them who they are today and what's making them who they're going to be in the future. And so I love to hear people's stories of their sibling overcoming something and them being the rock and the support system, and then how they got to be where they are. I love how vulnerable people are when they talk about their stories, because I feel like everyone has a little bit of a shield up for themselves. They try to shield themselves from the world, and I feel like when people are open and vulnerable about what they're going through, I feel like I can relate to that, and it creates a quick and good bond between me and the person I'm talking with. And the green ribbon just symbolizes all of that to me, and all that, if we keep doing this with people we know and keep sharing our stories, I mean, before we know it, the stigma will stop, and I feel like the concept of mental health will just be a part of life that people share, and it gives me hope. So
absolutely, the green ribbon can definitely be the beginning of a discussion for a lot of people. And as you've seen today, we've had quite a discussion on how youth in our community are looking at mental health and how they're using social media. And hopefully this is just kind of the beginning of a discussion among young people within our community around, the big hot issue of mental health. And hopefully it will kind of provide an opportunity for young people to start talking about it more often. I want to thank you guys for joining us. You may notice our shirts say #SacYouthMatter. And we're, again, hoping to continue this discussion not only within our communities face-to-face, but start to take an online presence so that the conversation can also go beyond the walls of this room. So please check us out on our Facebook page, as well as some links that you can find there to get more information and resources about mental health in Sacramento County. And Susie, will send it on back to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for watching today's edition of Mental Health Matters. If you've enjoyed our episode and would like more information, you can use our hashtag #SacYouthMatter, to find out more about the project. For more information on this episode or to obtain a copy, please call 916-366-4600. Special thanks to the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Sacramento for allowing us to use their facility to film our youth panel. And special thanks to Stephanie Ramos, our moderator for today's youth panel, as well as to all of our panelists who shared their stories today. Thank you so much. And please remember, your mental health matters.
When I think of where I've been, the good times and the bad, on a scale of 1 to 10, either way I'm glad, 'cause I'm not alone. As I'm reaching for the phone, your voice is there, you really care, you're my comfort zone. Sometimes when I'm lost, crushed beneath the pain, though I can't afford the cost, I just smile and play the game. But there's a healing place where I cannot pretend. Your smiling face, your heart's embrace heals me again. So even when the storm is strong and I'm deaf to my own cry, I faintly hear a distant song, and I simply can't deny that I'm not alone. 10,000 times I've known my best bet is that first step.